we're going to bring in another victim of this post office scandal, Wendy Buffrey. Welcome, Wendy. Unlike Christopher, you actually were sentenced. You received a community sentence order with unpaid work for 150 hours for 2 counts of alleged fraud, which you obviously did not commit. You were also ordered to pay £26,000, 250 quid compensation and £1,500 towards the cost of the prosecution. Have you been pardoned or exonerated yet?
Yeah, my conviction was overturned in 2021. Still waiting for compensation.
And can I ask you, Wendy, Paula Vennells, who was the chief executive of the post office while you were suffering, and so were so many others, hundreds of other sub-postmasters and sub-postmistresses were suffering. She was the chief executive at the time. She has just handed back her CBE after 1 million people, more than 1 million, signed a petition to get her to do so, or to have her stripped of it. She's fallen on her own sword and handed it back. Has she done the right thing?
Yes, she has. I don't know why it's taken her quite this long to give it back. Obviously, it was very important to her, even though she didn't deserve it. But yes, I'm very glad that it's actually been handed back now. It's better than having it stripped from her, I suppose, but I would have preferred that.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Explain to us, Wendy, what your interactions were like during the whole procedure of you being sentenced and then being ordered to pay compensation. Were you able to have any decent conversations with anybody, or did you just feel like you were being completely ignored, if not bullied?
I've had a few conversations and done a few interviews over the last, well, since our convictions were overturned. And the GLO came along, and I've given quite a few interviews and spoken to people in the meantime. But as an example, that petition, we had that going for over 3 years, and it took us 3 years to get just over 1,000 signatures. And then just in the 4 days and the few extra since the drama has been aired, we're up well over 1 million now. So it just shows how differently our story has been shown and covered just since the drama's been out there.
Yeah, I mean, many people just, shockingly, in my view, just didn't know about this. Don't forget, it's been trundling on, shockingly, since 1999, so the best part of a quarter of a century. Now, we know that at least 4 people committed suicide for being convicted of crimes they did not commit. We know that there are serial cases of people being driven to alcoholism, drug addiction. Hang on. Wendy's just gone there. Perhaps while we get Wendy back, we'll go back to Christopher. Are you still there, Christopher?
Yeah, I'm still here.
I was just saying to Wendy there, your fellow post office sub-master mistress, that 4 people have committed suicide. Many were driven to alcoholism and drug addiction. Happy marriages were destroyed. Happy families were ruined. It's impossible to overstate the epic level of this scandal, which has been, quite correctly in my view, described as the most widespread miscarriage of justice in British legal history. Tell us what you felt like when you were being accused of all of this, because there is nothing worse than an entire system bullying you into being guilty when you know you're innocent.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, because I'd been in the business from such a young age, I'd actually started delivering newspapers from when I was 12. So it's something that I've grown up with, and it was such a small village, like tight-knit community. So everybody knows, you're the pillar of the community. And, when you've been in that situation for a long time, and then obviously you have all the accusations and all them things flying around, obviously the atmosphere in the area completely changes, so it's very difficult in order for you to operate, and you don't really want to be seen and being about, so you try to maybe like hide away a little bit. So it is really damaging, and I think, like you say, it's impossible to compensate people for all of the things that you've just described that people have gone through.
Yeah.
And yes, it's great that Paula Vennells has handed our CBE back, and like Wendy said, she should have done it sooner. But the problem is that meant all of the attention was focused on that and not on putting the people back into the position that they should have been in.
Yeah, Wendy, the government has said today, the Justice Secretary Alex Chalk, that he is actively considering some sort of blanket exoneration for everybody accused by the Post Office in order to expedite a compensation scheme. Is that enough? Is that going to do anything to begin to repair the damage that this horrific scandal has levied on people like you?
I mean, it's wonderful on behalf of the people that have been too afraid to come forward. There are a lot of people that have been through the court system and are absolutely terrified of going through it again. So in that respect, it will be a wonderful thing, and it will get everybody on a step towards their compensation. But will it do anything to make us better, make us feel better? They can never, ever take away what they've done to us with money or anything else. They just can't.
Absolutely. Now, as I was just saying to Christopher there, 4 suicides, at least 4 suicides, many driven to alcoholism and drug addiction, happy families destroyed, marriages ruined, and at least 20 people. It's hard to get the precise number, but at least 20 went to prison, including one poor lady who was 8 weeks pregnant, who was locked up on her son's 10th birthday. As I said just now, impossible to overstate the epic level of this scandal. But what was it like for you to be caught up in the vortex of this massive miscarriage of justice, saying, but I didn't do anything wrong, and they're saying, well, computer says you did? How was that for you? It must have been absolutely awful.
I mean, it devastates you. You get ill because you've had lack of sleep, because you can't sleep. So a lot of us have had stress-induced illnesses that have really affected our lives. And it's so hard to actually explain what this has put us through. It's really hard. The only people who really understand are the other sub-postmasters.
Let me ask you another thing. We have to stress about Paula Vennells. We don't know what she knew or didn't know. It could be that she was lied to. But also, Sir Ed Davey, who was then the Post Office Minister, he says everybody lied to him. Now, in the middle of this drama, don't forget, hundreds of people saying to the Post Office the same story. We didn't do this. We think it's the computer, and yet you were serially ignored. And when Alan Bates, the hero of the hour, as in Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, asked for a meeting with the Post Office Minister, Ed Davey, Sir Ed Davey, he said he could see no useful purpose for that and refused that meeting. He's got questions to answer, hasn't he, Mr. Davey?
Well, all of them have. I mean, they're either completely negligent or they're complicit, and that's the only 2 choices.
Yeah.
There isn't anything else out there that they can say, and any of them that didn't investigate it more when there were all of us out there trying to let them know what was going on, as far as I'm concerned, are complicit in what they're doing.
Yeah, Christopher, do you share that viewpoint? Is there any particular person or organisation that you point the finger of blame at? Or do you think that this is essentially a shared responsibility among lots of people?
I think that's why it's so complicated to get to the bottom of it. I think, like the political correspondent said earlier, that it covers every single political party, including the coalition. It covers many CEOs over the years of both Royal Mail and Post Office when they were joined. It covers many members of Parliament, like ministers at the time, and even the civil servants in there that obviously are giving them their briefing. So it's very hard to pin it on one particular person. But when you know that you've contacted your MP, and so have hundreds of others, who have then wrote or spoke to the minister, and they've been told from whoever that everything's fine. You know, we've got reassurance that Horizon's fine, Post Office are fine. We believe that. Well, then they said that, like Wendy said, they all have questions to answer because they haven't gone far enough. It's only been in the recent years since the High Court case that the ministers have started to very slowly get a grip of it, really.
Yeah, my thought, Wendy, would be this, alluding to what I was saying to you just now, that you've got hundreds of people accused of these alleged offences, fraud, theft, etc. And they're all saying the same thing. And I think that I was about to say the crime here, and it kind of is a crime, of whoever is responsible for ignoring the fact. Hundreds of people saying the same thing, and they were just serially ignored. Somebody's got to pay the price for that, because that is, I would suggest, possibly criminal negligence, but at the very least is heartless incompetence.
Absolutely, it is. I mean, one of my colleagues said, you know, it's not the computer system that took us to court. It was people.
Yeah.
And it was people that didn't investigate. And it was people that put us through the courts. And it was people that got us into the situation that we're in now. That wasn't the computer system. The computer system was faulty, but it was the people within the post office, within the civil service, and within government that was involved with the post office that put us where we are now. Terrible,
terrible. And do you believe that this is a theory that's going around that I subscribe to, my theory, speculation of course, that you people, you poor people, were thrown to the wolves by people who thought the reputation of the post office was more important than your lives?
100%, yes.
Extraordinary. It really is extraordinary. Thank you so much. Well, Wendy Buffrey.